Hello, my name is David Faure and I work for KDAB. In this video, you will see how to connect a client and a server using local sockets. What we mean by local sockets is that the two processes are going to run on the same machine, but most of the communication we are going to do would work the same with TCP sockets, which allow to have the two applications on different machines. Because we have two different processes, things are a little bit more complex than with a simple application, because we have to deal with things like, what if the client starts and tries to connect and the server isn't running yet? What if the server crashes? What if we restart the server? What if we start it twice? These kind of problems. We'll see how to deal with all of those in this code example. So here is what we want to do. We want to have a client application, which is a GUI application. We want it to connect to a server, and what we are going to do is create a class called connection to handle all the communication with the server. On the server side, we will have to create something called a QLocal server, and it is the one that will receive the connection request. And then when it does that, because a new client is connecting, it will create an instance of a class, which I called client handler, which will deal with the socket to communicate with that client. And the benefit of that design is that if another client tries to connect to the server, we'll simply create another instance of client handler, and we can have as many of those as we want. What they will do is get queries from the client and look up things in the database that I've shown here, and simply return the results to the clients. Let's have a look at the code for the connection between those two. On the client side, what we do is to create a socket. So this is a QLocal socket, and we connect to its signals: connected, if it works; disconnected, if somehow the connection was closed; and error, in case we have a connection error. And then, once we have set that up, we can actually try to connect to the server, which we do here with the connect to server method, which returns immediately and emits the signal later on, whether it managed to connect or whether it got an error. Once we have done that, we will, if we are connected, we will enable the button that allows the user to make a request. And when the user actually does that, we can then write the request to the server. And so we use the write method and then flush to ensure that it actually gets sent and not just kept in a buffer. So this is what the client application looks like. We have the button enabled because we managed to connect to the server. And then when I click on it, it will actually send the hello command to the server. The other thing we did is when I close this window, it will then send the quit command to be able to quit the server immediately. This is because, to keep things easier for development, what I've done here is to start the server when the client starts. So basically start both applications at the same time. Obviously, you wouldn't want that in a production, but it's quite convenient to simply start both and exit both at the same time when developing. So we have some code for that up here, which starts the server using queue_process, and that's also why we exit it when we are done at the end. But then what happens if the client starts and tries to connect before the server is actually ready? Then we get the error that you can see here. You can see that it says, well, server not found, because the server isn't running yet. So what we do in the error handling is to simply try again after half a second. We hope that later on the server will be available, and we simply try connecting again. All right, that's it for the client side. Now, if we have a look at the code for the server, what we do in the server is to create an instance of a class I called people server, which is a QLocal server, and then we can call listen on it so that it's ready to get incoming requests from clients. And the way that those two find each other is that they use the same name. I simply called it people. It's actually the name of a file on Unix, which allows to connect the client and the server. One of the issues with that is if the server crashes, then that file is kept around and the clients think the server is already there, and the server also cannot start properly. It says address in use, meaning there seems to be another server. I can't start and claim that file for me. And this is why the solution shown here is to simply delete the file on startup, so that if the server crashes and restarts, it will then claim that file again and it will be ready for connections. This also means that if we start the server twice, then it will simply be the second instance that wins because it removes the file from the first one and then claims it for itself. So that's how we handle the case where both instances of the server are started. What else do we do in the people server? We will connect to the new connection signal, and that's where we create the client handler instance for that socket that we just got from the Curacl server. So basically, the client and the server both have a socket, right? It's not the same instance. They have different instances. And whatever we write in one socket will be read in the other and vice versa. This is how we can do the communication between the two. And the client handler class will connect to the ready read signal. It gets the request from the client, and then it can, once it has a full line, right, the data could be split in chunks because it's too big, and it would be sent in several pieces. And obviously, we can only process a command once it's full. So we need a full line, and that's what we test with canReadLine. Once we have that, we actually read the line, chop the last line feed at the end, and then we can process that request. For now, we'll just show it on screen. But there is one special request we can handle. It's the quit request, which will then quit the QCore application instance. All right, in the next video, I will show you how to actually do a communication protocol with JSON so that we can send actual queries and get responses. But for now, we just wanted to connect the two processes and see that they can talk to each other. So this was the first step, connecting the client to the server. And in the next video, we'll implement an actual connection. Thank you for watching, and you can subscribe to the KDAB YouTube channel to get notified of new releases. Thank you. Bye-bye.